It was Easter, 1985. And Jesus gave the dictation that we will be listening to very soon. Before we start that dictation, however, he's asked us to take a look at the first part of it. You see, if you've been in any of the live dictations and you leave the dictation after it's being very deeply moved, and people would say, "What did he say?" You can search and search and search, but your answer will be, I can't tell you. I can't put it in words. And so many of our dictations give us so much insight. Intellectually, we don't grab it. It just flows right past us. We become it in a way, but on another way, intellectually, we don't have it at our fingertips because we were involved in the vibration, the reality. And so he wants us to take a look at least the first few paragraphs. What did he really say? Very first sentence, you will hear him say in the dictation, "In the full light of the resurrection, I, Jesus, bring to you that light of your own resurrection, which is indeed the enlightenment of the Spirit." Now, when I first heard that, and I was there, it went right through me. If you'd have said, "What did he say?" Oh, I can't say what he said. So let's look even at the first sentence. In the full light of the resurrection, the full light of the resurrection, I, Jesus, bring to you that light of your own resurrection, or that understanding of your own resurrection, which is indeed the enlightenment of the Spirit. You know, as we begin to be aware of resurrection, what it really means, we then can become aware of our own resurrection, for we have passed through many of them in our former lives. The many of them in the constant expansion of awareness that never, ever stops. Resurrection, what is it? When viewed through the lens of moving from one state of consciousness to another, it transcends the conventional understanding of revival from physical death. Instead, promotes a spiritual awakening or an evolution of consciousness. In this way of looking at it, the resurrection becomes a symbol of rebirth, constant rebirth, renewal, and transcendence, where the individual undergoes a profound shift in spiritual awareness. In Jesus' case, it's a complete change of, instead of death, it's birth, it's renewal, it's a step up. It promotes enlightenment by the Holy Spirit, where one sheds the limitations of the old self and embraces a new level of existence. Resurrection, in this sense, is not merely a momentary event. but an ongoing process of transformations leading towards a higher state of Christic consciousness. It means the continual resurrection into an ever-expanding Christology or Christhood, a greater awareness of our individual divinity. Resurrection, constant movement upward, upward, upward. It is a truth that we are never standing still. We are either expanding and moving forward or contracting in consciousness, never standing still. You've met those people who were very religious, very spiritual for a while, and then when you meet them further down the line in life, you find a person totally degenerate. You say, what happened? What happened? He didn't stand still. He had his choices, and he chose the left instead of the right. He went backwards, if we would say, instead of moving forward. So let me go forward in this dictation a little bit. He says, beloved, in the love of the Spirit of the Lord's day, consider then, what is the meaning of the Lord's day? Why, it is the appearing of your I am presence. It is the internalization of the divine word within you. And these are not mere words that I speak, but the promise of your Father from everlasting unto everlasting. It's a growing process of becoming God, if you want to say it that way. Like a student beginning to play the piano, even progressing from beginning to press a key, he likes to hear the tone as he presses the key as a child. And he progresses from that to professionally personifying the feeling of the spirit of a Chopin or a Handel, translating the thought of the author and feeling, expressing it through his fingertips. It is constant movement forward in expressing our divine nature, which is God, of being so attuned to the Father that it is the Father in thought, feeling, and manifestation. And thus, the march of the Son of God moves on. Thus, the world caught up in its usual compromises and dichotomies is all around you. But in the midst of chaos, the fire enfolding itself is the true spirit of the immortal one that you are. Now, as this is a flame gathering more of itself, Jesus says, what we see is the equation of the soul entering into the flame gathering process. Resurrection, moving upward and forward, ever aware of its purpose of being. We do this through prayer. We do this through decrees. We do this with a joy-filled living, purposefully increasing the flame or power of being, that manifestation of Almighty God. We do it on purpose. Every moment, it's in the back of our minds. We are representing to the highest of our consciousness, God himself or herself. on purpose, expressing the God reality of love and creativity and being, constantly moving forward in being more of God love, more of God power, and more of God wisdom. This means more of energy control, more of effective love, and more of greater depth of wisdom and depth of understanding in all things. You begin to see it moving in through everything. It means letting go of precious concepts and going deep into the heart of being. Do you understand, my beloved, that this is the mighty work of the ages? Refining, 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 stepping up step by step, for which work you have been given time after time, cycle after cycle, the new body in a new incarnation, a new vessel into which you would pour the new wine of the Spirit, resurrection, constantly resurrecting, moving upwards, step by step. Have you looked back lately at how far you have come in this incarnation? Have you evaluated where you are in terms of your Christology, your Christhood? Have you looked forward to how far you must go, accomplishments that you must reach before your graduation comes, important goals that affect you eternally? Each of us have made a vow before we came here to accomplish certain things. Have you checked this out? This is really the meaning of Easter. We must get past limiting Easter to Jesus's situation. It is a very moving situation. It moved me this morning. I almost had tears as I heard the scripture again read. But can we afford to leave that as our final response to it? We can't. We must move past that and see its real reason is to show us the necessity to apply the teaching individually, that we may become one with the Father, Mother God. Man had become totally lost at this point, and that's the reason Jesus was assigned to come. Easter opened the door for his divine reason to again be understood. And so Jesus continues, and thus as the tiny babe comes forth, it is with full hope, hope within the soul, that this time, in light of your many embodiments, this time, in this embodiment, the renewal will take place, and the vow you made before you came into embodiment, and the striving is begun, and the child determines to master the movement of limbs, to master coordination, to go out and discover the whole world as that which is the world inside. For you must realize that you can only recognize outside of you what you are already aware of within you. As a story is told, when the people searching for America came upon New England. They stopped the ships offshore and came ashore. The Indians had never seen a big ship before. So they didn't see the ships. They couldn't identify the ships. All they could see was suddenly these men dressed funny were on the shore. And they thought they were gods. Then when they finally got acquainted with them, they showed them the ships, probably even took them out and gave them a pass through. After that, they could see and understand the ships in the harbor. So it is, as we understand Jesus's experience, so we can then begin to look at our own experiences. Thus, the child is born with a quest for self-mastery. And by, there is limitation placed upon the very concept of self-mastery, as others do for the child when only the child should be doing for himself or others. Lowering the level of excellence that is required, and do not allow the child to reach for the stars and to discover how high the reach must be in order to grasp the union of the I am that I am. Witness what's happening in America today. We're trying to say to a child, you're not a man, you're a woman. You're not a woman, you're a man. Whatever you want, you can be. Totally taking it out of context for life as it is supposed to be lived. We have to begin to see that the terrible situation which is putting upon our children, our people, it's going to follow us in this area of life. He said, let the systems of education contemplated by parents and teachers take into consideration that in the child mind, there is no limitation. There is an acquaintance with infinity. Time and space do not come easily for the child. And therefore, while you train him to work within these confines, do not forget to allow the spirit to soar and to contemplate dimensions that are indeed infinite, the largest of God himself, the magnanimity of God, the generosity of life, space wide and open, the vastness of the seas and the valleys and the mountains. Let the child see and know the wonder of the expanse that is his in which to create. Note, you can go on television or computer, and you can see a child 2 and 3 and 4 years old sitting down at a piano and playing a huge piano piece. You say, impossible. He can hardly get his hands over the keys, and he's all over the piano. You say, how can he do this? It's because we have limited in our concepts what a child can do. Excuse me. This also goes for inner guidance. We are all guided to a degree, to the degree that we have faith and confidence in life to listen and obey instead of ignoring it. How many of us, if we just follow the hunch, it was there, but we don't trust. We've never allowed ourselves to dive into that still small voice that we can be led moment by moment and day by day. Thus, beloved, understand that the balance between the indoor and outdoor activities is the going within to the secret chamber of the heart, where the child may learn the inner disciplines of energy and the mastery of detail within the mind and within his world, and the going without to discover that there is an infinite potential in God, that there is an infinite potential in the fire enfolding itself, and the challenge of life on earth is the wedding of the two. Baird Spalding, writer of the series Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, has a chapter in his last book, the 6th volume chapter, the chapter that reads, Rising Out of Limitation. He writes, if we saw a person hold out his hand when he needed bread, and instantly a loaf of bread would appear in that hand, we should stand in great awe. This would seem to the Western mind to be a miracle contrary to nature. But upon close study, we see that it is fully possible for everyone to achieve similar phenomena. We have everything that belongs to us. All is here, and we do not bring it from anywhere else. All is accomplished. We need only to project and accept, and it is ours to use. Now, he says, through a use of a certain ray. Well, let me say, first of all, if you go into the first several volumes, you will see the Masters of the Far East demonstrate to these scientists, and he's one of them, who went over there and lived with these masters for 3 years to discover, well, how are they doing these things? And it shows in there a master saying, okay, let me show you what you can do. And he planted some corn, and they watched it grow and mature, and they could pick it. Now he's saying here, he came back and they started experimenting with the same thing. He said, now through the use of a certain ray, and we know there are 7 rays, we can so irradiate a plot of ground that after 24 hours, we can plant a kernel of corn, which will develop into a fully grown stalk with 2 completed ears upon it within 7 minutes. Another group has been able to develop a bearing grapefruit tree in 6 months, whereas usually it takes 6 years. Carrying on the experiment, we planted a kernel of corn in a plot of ground that had not been irradiated in this way to observe the growth photographically, whereas the growth of the latter is at the rate of 9 million cells per second. The growth of the former is at the rate of 96 billion cells per second. All we have succeeded in doing is accelerating nature. There has been no unnatural miracle about it. Resurrection. Resurrection beginning now in this very moment. You heard that it's possible to ask for bread and it appears. The only thing is, we have learned the limitation. Oh, no, you can't do that. You have to, first of all, grow it, which takes 4 months, and then you harvest it, and then you grind it up, and then you bake it, and finally you have your loaf. Only because we are limited. He said the same principle is involved when the disciples said to the master that there was need for food and there was still 4 months till the harvest. Jesus said, look upon the fields. They are white with harvest. At that very moment, they could go out and pick it, even though it was early and it wasn't ripe yet, but it was ripe when Jesus said that. He said, we've always pronounced that a miracle. But Jesus explained that there was no miracle and that the slow process we accepted as natural is not natural. We, in our lack of progress, put nature back to where it responds to our limitation. Someone has told us that it takes 4 months to grow corn and 6 years to grow grapefruit. Today, it is known that if we release those limitations, nature springs into existence immediately. Immediately. Resurrection. Moving from one vibration to a higher vibration, seeing it coming forward. This is part of resurrection. Now, these experiments are expensive, and it is not known how soon they will prove to be practical for everyone, but we can envision that it will be. I can remember when aluminum was worth $450 per ounce, he says. Today it is a common product. The same thing takes place every time, in every line of endeavor. Many of the great conditions have been in existence all along, but it takes people a long time to realize that they themselves are putting on the limitations. Death. Jesus, in an instant, changed the concept. There is no such thing as death. It's a progression. It's moving forward. There's a book written some time ago about a woman who went to Australia. Something, I forget the total title, but had something to do with down under. She went down to live with the indigenous Australians who do not wear clothes, and they have a whole section of Australia in which they work with. And in that situation, one of the things that she watched was they wanted to demonstrate to her the limitation that most people have. And so they on purpose broke one of the men's leg. She saw the ends of the bone. And the night went by. The next morning, the man was walking just like he always did. It was totally healed overnight. Amazing. Here were indigenous people, supposedly not educated. Yes. Usually experimental work like this is done in the wrong way, said the writer. We set up certain conditions, believing that they will accomplish certain results. Today, we are going for the result instead of the experiment, knowing first that it has all been worked out in nature and is in existence and will produce. You can leave a seed in a metal receptacle and it will not germinate unless someone comes along who can present life to it. It is known today that there are people who can so project life that it will penetrate every substance. The moment the seed comes in contact with the light emanation that has been put forth, you can observe that vibration dropping down to the heart of the seed where it begins the process of growth. There is a man on the Pacific coast who can germinate life to seeds to 90%, where before the percentage was only 30%. Experiments are being made with soil whereby production can be stepped up considerably more. We put the limitations on nature. Nature works in complete harmony with us, and that harmony is instantaneous when we allow the response to come forth. There is not a blade of grass, not a tree, not a flower in existence, but that it came into existence first through the projection of life from an individual. We say, God grows the trees. God does, but it takes expression emanating from the individual to start it into existence. We accomplish all things first from acceptance, then take away the barriers to natural progress by letting go of doubt, fear, and superstition. And then the fields are white with harvest. It can be shown that Jesus knew every one of these conditions and was perfectly familiar with them. Obviously, if he rose from the dead, he had something going for him, an understanding, a consciousness, an awareness. He did not hesitate to show how they can do exactly as he did if they would let go of the limitations, forgive the limitations. Why do we carry these limitations with us? It's only through projecting our thoughts through a lower field where we pick up and repeat them until we take a picture instead of realizing a fact. This is Easter. And we are looking at the miracle of resurrection. And we are attempting to show the continuity of this miracle throughout all of life, giving life, expanding life, creating life as a manifestation of God. Now going back to the dictation, thus returning Jesus to Jesus' dictation in the dictation that follows, the divinity ensconced in the humanity is the mark of the individual who is balanced. Want me to read that again? The divinity ensconced in the humanity is the mark of the individual who is balanced. And those who are unbalanced in this society and civilization, as always, have either an oversense of self-importance as gods, which they have made of themselves, or an undersense of importance of themselves as human beings. Where do you fit? If you fit at all. Maybe you're on the beam and are involved in the expression of God. The equation then must be the realization of the hand in the glove, Jesus says. The glove being the body that you wear, the hand being the movable force of the Godhead that is yours also. A power to be wielded, a love to be given, and a wisdom that is the bread broken for you. For this is indeed my body of light. My body of light, beloved, is that light which quickeneth every cell of the mind. I come then for the breaking of the confines of your own version of orthodoxy. I have seen in the church people who have been all their lives in the church, and they are still as a child in their orthodoxy. They have not moved. And because they have not moved, they will probably reincarnate. This is how serious this is. Your own version of self-limitation, of mortality and self-condemnation must change. For above and beyond and apart from that which the false pastors have chosen to give you is your own sense of self-limitation. And thus there is a doctrine of human values, the end of which is the exclusion in total of the divine man and the divine woman. Watch the news today. Just yesterday, we saw how Easter has been proclaimed a day for the sinners. I mean, it's almost impossible to conceive of a person who's supposed to be Catholic giving Easter, the tremendous power of Easter, as a day for certain people, which is negative. And thus, for all intents and purposes, the evolution of the soul ceases while the development of the human increases. And in that increase, there is more of the development of the outer self that is present at any moment to snuff out the tender inspiration of the soul about to reach into the fires of creativity and break the mortal coil of self and self-transcend. Watch the youth. You have some youth stepping up and becoming even greater people than the people who are in government, etc. They have more consciousness. Said, thus it is a delicate balance, one concerning which you ought to pray, for this is the very mystery of life. Weaving in and out of the responsibilities which deal with the realm of possible, with the practical life which can be lived, given all the so-called limitations, and in the very midst of these to recognize none of them, and to know that the Spirit as the revolutionary of God will cut right through, will not in any way allow to be placed upon itself interference or blockage, a sense of infinite within itself, able to penetrate, able to go beyond, able to catch the wind of the Holy Spirit and move to that infinite source. This is Easter, and this is its meaning, to understand the changing or the multiplying of the energies of the Spirit and to manifest them as God-free beings, to see the difference between life and death is but the spiritual control of life's energy. And to the degree of one's spiritual awareness can the full understanding of Easter message be known. And one never reaches the fullness of God, but understands that it is an eternal thrust to become the all of God. Thus, no belief system is possible to be totally complete. It is a constant upward trek, and one that provides the greatest life experience possible for the individual soul. The more you know, the more you become aware of how little you really know.